Welcome back. A new ABC Ipsos poll finds more than half of the country disapproves of how President Biden is handling the war between Israel and Hamas. This as we are learning that the Biden administration sent more than $30 million of COVID relief money to a Palestinian relief group accused of harboring Hamas terrorists. Joining us right now is Tennessee Senator Bill Hagerty, a member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Senator, thanks very much for being here this morning. I just can't even believe what I just said. We've been obviously following your investigation and your colleagues' investigation of the COVID money, and now we're learning that $30 million of that COVID money went to groups that were harboring terrorists like Hamas. Your thoughts? It's
just amazing, Maria. And what we've been doing is sending money actually into Gaza. Last cycle, I actually put up legislation that would reprogram those funds. This is after the 11-day war, when rockets were coming from Gaza into Israel, to take those funds, $1 billion worth of U.S. taxpayer money, and reprogram that to replenish Iron Dome. I'm going to be bringing that right back to the floor of the Senate. I don't think I'll have the same objection from Democrats that I had before, at least I hope not.
Well, Iran's foreign minister is warning Israel that a ground offensive in Gaza could force Tehran to intervene. I want to get your take on this, because he also said that if the conflict gets bigger, the U.S. will suffer significant damages. Here's President Biden on whether he's considering sending troops to Israel. Watch this.
I don't think that's necessary. Israel has one of the finest fighting forces in the country.
Would you support Israeli occupation of Gaza at this point?
I think it'd be a big mistake. Look, what happened in Gaza, in my view, is Hamas and the extreme elements of Hamas don't represent all the Palestinian people.
Do you believe that Hamas must be eliminated entirely?
Yes, I do. But there needs to be a Palestinian Authority.
Senator, your thoughts on the president's comments on that 60 Minutes interview?
You know, Maria, President Biden is managing the conflict there in Israel and Gaza the same way he's managing our southern border. It's a disaster. He should be up on his facts. Israel's already said they're not going to occupy Gaza. He ought to understand this, too. Iran would not be in a position to make the threats that they're making were it not for the appeasement strategy that he's engaged in since he came into office. We saw this unfold under the Obama administration. Appeasement brought about the violence that we saw in Gaza in 2014, 2015, the disastrous Iran deal, the JCPOA that they brought forward. Thankfully, President Trump tore that up. We went to maximum pressure. Maximum pressure was working. We ought to impose every sanction that we possibly can right now. Instead, Joe Biden is talking about, well, potentially pausing the payment of $6 billion while he's looked the other way in terms of sanctions enforcement and allowed Iran to enrich itself to the tune of tens of billions of dollars. That enrichment, that non-enforcement of sanctions, has allowed Iran to support proxies like Hamas and Hezbollah and deliver the type of wrath that they've delivered to Israel right now. This is the biggest loss of Jewish lives that we've seen since the Holocaust.
Do you have a confidence that, in fact, Israel can wipe out Hamas?
I absolutely do. They have a very competent military. We've been very effective in terms of working with them. I think what we need to do is step back, give Israel the headroom, and allow them to do what they need to do and give them the moral support to do that. It took Joe Biden 48 hours to get around to the fact of acknowledging this. Yeah,
well, look at all the threats, though, that we're having faced with from Iran. And I also want to point out that Trey Yingst is standing by. He reported earlier that the Israeli military told him 199 hostages are being held in Hamas in Gaza, by Hamas in Gaza, rather. 14 of those hostages are believed to be Americans. Stay with us, Bill Hagerty, because I want to get to foreign correspondent Trey Yingst. He's on the ground right now in southern Israel. Trey.
Yeah, Maria, good morning. We are at an Israeli artillery position in southern Israel. We're the only team here watching soldiers as they train and prepare to get ready for the days to come. There's a real understanding that the ground invasion could be just a matter of hours away, and Israel has to be prepared for what comes next. And we just spoke with someone who is a major in the Israeli military to get more information about the latest on the ground. And he said the Israelis have thwarted 3 cross-border attempts overnight. Also, they are trying to evacuate the northern part of their country along the border with Lebanon, 28 different communities, because they're worried about Hezbollah trying to attack from the north. And the situation on the ground in Gaza is deteriorating. Hamas, the group in control of Gaza, continues to fire rockets into southern and central Israel. And the military, on the record, speaking with Fox, says there is no ceasefire, despite reports earlier today that indicated there would be a ceasefire in the southern part of Gaza to allow for the evacuation of foreigners from the Strip and the entry of aid. So a lot of developments on the ground, but the soldiers behind me in high spirits. They say they are prepared for any sort of continued attacks against Israel, but they're understanding that a multi-front conflict is in the cards here, and it's something they have to be ready to go.
Well,
Maria?
I mean, Trey, Israel could not have been more clear. Not only did they warn Hamas that they are coming in to retaliate against those attacks, the worst attack since September 11th, but they also flew planes over Gaza and dropped leaflets. And on those leaflets, they told the citizens, get out of Dodge. So, I mean, they're being real transparent here.
Yeah, absolutely. We had some original reporting last week. I spoke with a diplomatic source over the weekend who indicated that inside Gaza, when the Israelis warn civilians about an airstrike that's about to take place against their building, they are keeping civilians from leaving their homes. And I spoke with someone inside Gaza City who confirmed this information. And then I reached out to Hamas, who on the record denied that this was taking place. But then the Israelis, as it relates to the broader evacuation, released drone images of roadblocks that Hamas set up inside the Gaza Strip. And so we've started to report this out more and try to understand what exactly is happening inside Gaza. Well, this morning I received a text message from a source in Gaza City, a civilian, who said they have gotten out of their cars and they're now walking south because they're no longer able to drive. There are traffic jams on the two main routes headed south, and they understand that the Israeli ground operation could start at any moment, so they need to get out of the way. So this source sending me a video and a few photos of he and his family walking south. That's how desperate they are to get out of harm's way in the Hamas-controlled Gaza Strip.
And Trey, the video that you exposed showed actual Hamas fighters as they began that attack on Israel from last Saturday, right? You got your hands on some GoPro video where we could see very clearly Hamas terrorists snatching people, going into Israel, going into people's homes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're also learning more information from the military about the planning from Hamas and these militants that crossed in, these terrorists who killed women and children in their homes. So we learned two things over the past 24 hours. One, the Israeli military, they've found leaflets and they've found pamphlets, all sorts of information that Hamas fighters had tucked in their bulletproof vests that they wore into Israel that gave maps of the area and also what communities to hit, even giving phrases of what to say in Hebrew, transliterated to tell people we're taking you hostage or we've killed your family. Additionally, we are learning more about the weapons that they used. They even used a thermobaric bomb that was homemade inside Gaza, throwing it into a civilian home and exploding, killing many civilians in the area. Maria?
Unbelievable. Wow. Trey, thank you so much. Incredible reporting from you. Trey Yingst on the ground this morning in Israel. Thank you, Trey Yingst. Stay safe. I'm talking with Senator Bill Hagerty this morning from Tennessee. Senator, you just heard Trey's report. Give us your reaction. And also, I want to know from you, where did Hamas get these weapons?
Well, first, I'd like to say I appreciate the bravery and courage that Trey has demonstrated. His reporting is absolutely critical. It's amazing what Hamas is doing. Their leadership should be called out on this, Maria. You know, the Israeli forces, the IDF, have called for civilians in Gaza to leave, to evacuate. Hamas leadership that are sitting in the comfort of five-star hotels in Qatar are telling their people to stay. They want to see the carnage. They want this to feed their propaganda machine. The blood is going to be on the hands of Hamas leadership. We need not allow the public to forget that, because there will be a massive propaganda machine underway as soon as the Israeli forces move on the ground in Gaza. Remember what Trey just told us. With respect to the weapons, I tell you, after what happened in Afghanistan, the Biden policy failures there, the evacuation of Afghanistan that left $80 billion worth of American equipment on the ground, I wouldn't be surprised that some of that equipment from the world's largest now arms bazaar doesn't make its way into this conflict, that our own equipment might find its way into the hands of these terrorists in Gaza.
Well, I mean, we know that the equipment was left on the ground. Where is it? In Afghanistan.
I have a feeling, I know where some of it might be. Exactly. We don't know. And again, that goes to the irresponsibility of this administration. They just look the other way, and all they do is spin rather than think about the strategy. With respect to Hamas, though, let's not forget the fact that Hamas is funded by Iran. During the Trump administration, we executed the maximum pressure campaign that choked off the flow of funds to Iran. We took the flow of funds down to a trickle. They weren't allowed to sell their oil on the black market. In fact, Hamas and Hezbollah were going broke. That was widely reported in the media. Joe Biden comes back into business. You know, in 2021, what do we see? The 11-day war coming from Gaza. Now we've got this. Anybody that believes that these funds, this technology, and this know-how isn't coming from Iran needs to wake up, Maria.
Well, I was just thinking that the other day. What about the maximum pressure campaign? They've obviously abandoned that in the Biden administration, and here's where we are. Senator, thank you. We'll be watching all of your work on this. We appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you, Maria. Great to be with you.
Bill Hagerty joining us this morning in Tennessee. We'll be right back.